Hey guys. So recently my friend, who I never say her name right, so forgive me, Rhisa, posted a video on Facebook and I found it very inspiring. And it made me feel like I need to post a video. And forgive me, I just woke up and yeah, but Risa's video was about her struggle with depression. And I don't actually post a lot of personal stuff on the internet. It may seem like I do, but I really don't. I try to be really funny on the internet. But I really felt like this was an important topic to talk about for me and for women, particularly women of color, even more particularly black women, about their struggle with depression. So, to start off, I'd just like to say that this is really hard for me, but I feel like very therapeutic. I've struggled with depression probably since I was born. Cried a lot as a child. I slept a lot as a child. And the older I got, it just got worse. I used to have a lot of sad dreams about a lot of sad topics. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And I kind of feel like no one really did. And the older I got, the more depressed, or the more visibly depressed I was. And it reached a tipping point in high school when I pretty much had a breakdown in class. And I feel like instead of it being handled as this young girl is like suffering from something, it kind of was just like, well, what's wrong with her? Well, why is she doing this? And why is she like this? And that was like a huge deal for me back then. And it still is kind of now. I mean, right now I see a therapist and I take an antidepressant. I've been taking an antidepressant on and off for over 10 years. I personally have a thing about drugs. I don't like the idea of having to take medication for the rest of my life because I can't handle my emotions and the way I feel. It just kind of comes off to me as like, oh, you're mentally unstable, you need these drugs. And that's really hard to deal with. Like, that's really hard to come to terms with when you don't have a physical ailment to justify being sick. So, I've been struggling with that in my later years. I've been struggling with the thought process of possibly having to take medication for a long period of time. But I also know that I'm not the only one struggling with things like this. It just becomes hard sometimes. A couple of months back, I had a terrible bout of depression. And I just fell completely into it. And I struggled. I really tried not to, but I fell so deep into it. And, I had a relationship, a really long-standing friendship end. And everyone's just like, oh, you're just sad about that. You're just upset about that. And it's like, yeah, I'm really upset about that. That counts as a trigger for it. But there were so many other things going on right then. I don't know if you remember, and not to bring my fellow New Yorkers back to a terrible time we just left, but it was snowing every 2 days. And if I could use an analogy for how my depression builds, how it builds up on me, it snowed and there were piles of snow, and the snow would become gray and dirty and gross. And then it would snow again in the next 2 days. So then a new fresh layer of snow was on top of it, and then that got gray and dirty. And then it would snow again, and it just kept happening in layers. And like, I bet you if you cut the snowbank in half, you would see like a gradient of snow covered in dirt and grime and terribleness. And that's how my depression builds on me. Like, something bad happens, I try to work through it, and then something else happens, and there's just triggers. And then sometimes it is just the weather. Like, sometimes I really miss the sun. Like, so I really need the sun to feel alive. Like, when it's gray and it's dark and it's dank outside, like, that really affects me. Sometimes it's when I'm working through some stuff, or like financially I'm having issues, or whatever it is. Like, there's certain triggers for it. And something that I've recently come to terms with is that I have panic attacks now, and I didn't have to deal with that when I was younger. And that's really scary. The first 2 times I had a panic attack, I thought I was dying. And I mean, you always think you're dying, but like, I wasn't exactly sure what it was. So I went to the emergency room. It was very scary. And if you can imagine, just for a moment, like, this thought of impending doom, of just like, oh, this is the end, better prepare myself because I'm gonna die. Like, it happened at work. Actually, I just realized that I had panic attacks before these 2 times, a year previously. But the one that I really associate with, I really remember, is the one I had at work, where we just had finished having a joke and laughing, and I was just like, ha ha ha, but I had already been feeling weird and like strange in my body. And then, oh, my arm just cracked. And then this cloud of fear and scariness just crept from behind me, and like just crept over me, and it engulfed me. And I was like, okay, I'm dying. And that was the feeling I got. And it is a terrible feeling. And I say all this to say that there's this belief that Black people don't go through some of this stuff for whatever reason. And I guess, and I don't, this video is running along, but the purpose of this video is for me to just come to terms with the fact that, yes, I struggle with this day in and day out, and I am a functioning depressed person. And my defense mechanism since the latter part of high school has been to be bubbly. And that confuses people, because people aren't used to seeing me completely 100% depressed. When they do, they're really worried, because I'm usually like, hey, it's Brianne. And that's my defense mechanism for my everyday depression, is just to put on this persona so that other people don't become depressed around me, Because I really do care about people, even the people I don't know. Like, I don't want to just be like down in the dumps and make everyone else feel shitty too. Oops, excuse me. No, I struggle, and it's a struggle, and I struggle pretty hard, and I haven't come to terms with the fact that sometimes I am a little suicidal. Like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't like the way this feels, and this feeling is terrible, and I don't want to feel this anymore. And I've never said that out loud, I think, that I can be suicidal. And It's not every day, it's usually when I'm at my absolute worst, but it's hard. And the point of this video, now that it's run into 10 minutes, is for my friends and family to know that I love them and I love myself, and that I'm struggling with a illness that cannot be seen, necessarily, and that is hard to understand because there's no physical symptoms for it outside of looking sad. Well, now there is. I think that's the reason why I got sick recently. I think that's the reason why I had all those stomach issues. It's because I was really depressed. It eats at your body. It can eat at your body. Oh my God. But I love my family and I love my friends. And I think that there is a lost forum about Black people and depression. We don't talk about it. My mother didn't talk about it. And I feel like at the age of 27, I'm finally willing to talk about it. So I actually am going to ask that if you, and you don't have to be Black or a person of color, you can just be any person who feels like they need to have a conversation, to post a response video about your personal struggle with depression, because it affects a lot of people, and depression is just like any other mental illness, which is there's a gradient, because you can have people who are just mildly depressed, which is still pretty shitty, excuse me, and you can have people who are severely depressed. And I know I fall somewhere in the middle. I know that I can be functioning and extremely depressed, and then I know I could be devastatingly depressed. Devastatingly depressed. So post a response video of how you deal with it. And I know the way I deal with it is I try to continue doing my normal activities. I try to write. I try to talk. I talk to myself. I tell myself that this is a phase. I'm going to get over it. And I also take antidepressants. So post a video. Let me know what you think and how you deal with it. And I appreciate you watching my video. Peace.